meet. That was the last live track and field I saw this year. So it's kind of fun to be talking with folks through Ocean Breeze here. But yeah, so I did start. So I actually grew up in Minnesota and was a multi-sport person growing up, and then found my way to the decathlon. I actually competed as an undergraduate at a Division III school called the University of St. Thomas in Minnesota. Actually, this week, they actually just moved to Division I. That was kind of a big announcement in athletic world. So that was my undergraduate. I was a decathlete there. And I think that really spurred my interest in coaching because I have a background and interest across all the event groups. So that was kind of what spurred my interest. And then I started coaching by coming out east. I started my career at the College of New Jersey, where I got my master's degree and started as a graduate assistant coach. And I don't know where all the years went, Lou, but 28 years later, I'm still coaching. So that's how it got started for me.
And what made you, I find this interesting because I took kind of the same path, went from high school running, college running, got into coaching high school track on the freshman level, varsity level, went into Division I coaching, and eventually stayed in the sport and actually happened to make a living in the sport. What made you kind of decide, hey, I want to get involved in the sport. I want to get involved in coaching, because there aren't really that many openings when you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, I was certainly very fortunate, and it's interesting in life. I think at some point you always hope you can find something that you love to do. And for me, like every day, I don't really feel like I'm working. I just feel like I'm doing what I want to be doing, and I'm enjoying it. So I'm kind of very fortunate to have found my way. But yeah, so basically for me, I was a business major undergraduate, and I really didn't have any aspirations to being a coach. The way it started for me was someone said, with my success in track and field, maybe I could get my graduate school paid for if I was a graduate assistant coach. So that's where it started for me. I was just looking for opportunities to be a graduate assistant coach. And the opportunity that presented itself was the College of New Jersey. At the time, it was called Trenton State College, actually. And I was the graduate assistant coach and got my master's paid for in athletic administration. So I actually thought I was going to go into the business side of sports, either college or professional. But honestly, when I was coaching, I really enjoyed the interaction with the students and I was really inspired by it. And I kind of thought, well, wow, this is a pretty unique opportunity as a coach. Maybe I could make a difference on students from 18 to 22. I love the track part, track and field, but I thought maybe that's my role. I can help people at that age group. And like I said, 28 years later, that's where I am. I coached 12 years at the College of New Jersey and was kind of the director of track there and had a lot of fun. It was a great experience. And then I had the opportunity to start coaching the Ivy League. So I coached 8 years as the head men's distance coach and cross country coach at Princeton University, worked with Fred Samara there, which was a great experience. And then the last 8 years here at the University of Pennsylvania. So it's really fun to be a part of the Home of the Penn Relays. So I've been very fortunate. I've had a lot of great opportunities to work with great coaches. So I feel blessed, and every day I get to work with great athletes. So pretty fortunate to be a coach.
I mean, that's, so many people. We were just on last week with Alan Webb and how he went through, and now he's college coaching also. What is some of your biggest challenges as a coach?
Yeah, I mean, I think, there's always a lot of challenges, and, there's a lot of on the track stuff that people think of. When you think about coaching, you're thinking about writing workouts and sort of planning for success on the track and all that kind of it. And that really is the great part of the job, to help students, sort of chase their potential in athletics and grow through that. But that's kind of a small part of it. A lot of the challenges actually come out off the track, just with everything. You want to support students off the track, in every way you can. And we're all dealing with loss. I mean, look at the moment we're in right now, right? And who knew a coach would be thinking about things like, what are we doing with coronavirus? We'll be back on campus. What am I doing with the athletes virtually? Things like that. There's a lot of aspects to being a coach that kind of go well beyond sort of planning a workout. Whether you're working as a psychologist or a support person or academic support, or working with alumni for your program. There's just so many aspects of coaching that I could never tell you in any day what I'm going to do, but somehow my day's busy.
You mentioned your athletes. What are you doing with your athletes right now? How are you keeping them motivated? It's a long summer. We're all training for cross country. Nobody knows whether we're coming or going. What are you doing with your athletes?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And I'll kind of lead in with this. And I was saying this to my wife recently, with the team and athletes I have the honor of coaching at the University of Pennsylvania, love working with students 18 to 22 and helping them chase their potential, on and off the track. And it's kind of tearing at my heart that right now they want to be competing. They want to be together, and it's not something we can do. And I certainly regularly talk to high school coaches and high school athletes in the recruiting process, in that same situation where, I think all of our hearts are going out to the young people that want to be doing their thing and doing their sports. So it's hard, but with our team right now, like everyone else, we're doing quite a few Zoom meetings, talking to everybody in small groups and large groups, and then individual conversations. And our group's going about training in the summer, and what we've talked about as a program, one of our philosophies is this general idea of have fun chasing your potential. So we're really just encouraging our students to think more big picture. We don't know when the next meet is going to be, or when the next race is going to be, or high jump or long jump, or so forth. But enjoy what you're doing, enjoy developing your talent, and at some point you'll get that opportunity to compete. So we're kind of just pushing them to, at the very purest level, find the time each day to try to get better at what you do and sort of enjoy that pursuit. So that's how we're selling it. Have fun chasing your potential. And to be honest with you, I'm really lucky. Our group is highly motivated and very connected to each other. So, I'm really proud of our coaching staff at Penn, and frankly, the athletes and what they're doing right now.
And what are you doing with your incoming freshmen? I mean, they haven't been part of your team and they're not as close knit. And were you able to finish up your recruiting the way you wanted to?
Yeah. So, well, from a recruiting standpoint, like our recruiting process is fairly early, just the way it works at Penn. Like most of the students do it pretty early in the process. So, in terms of who was coming to Penn as freshmen, that was pretty solidified. But in terms of connecting with those students, they're in that boat. I felt, my heart went out to watching them. Senior year is such an important year, and so many great things that happened athletically and sort of socially and everything. It was tough to see the students not have those opportunities. And then as the summer pursued, we were kind of open with them. If there were opportunities, within their high school to do some things, whether it was time trialing or hoping for some meets in the summer, we let them sort of chase those dreams. As we know, as it unfolded, there really wasn't those opportunities. Now they've been more involved with our team. So, at this point, they can be on Zoom calls and be connected to our team. So we've definitely pulled them in, and they're a part of our team discussions now on a regular basis as we get ready for the fall. But yeah, it's a challenging senior year for high school, and challenging for all high school students, and a very different transition than any of them anticipated for sure. So I don't have the answer, but they've kind of lumped in with our team. We're including them in everything, and they are excited to be coming to Penn and to take that next step. So.
And you have so many freshmen coming in from so many different programs over the year. How do you get them to buy into your training program for the summer? And is there anything different you're doing with this group of incoming freshmen that you haven't done with past incoming groups?
Right. Well, first I want to acknowledge too, I'm really fortunate. I don't do this on my own. So, with men's and women's track and field and cross country at Penn, there's over 100 athletes, and I have a great staff. I really am fortunate. I work with great people and really empowered to lead those recruiting efforts and work with the student athletes. So there's a lot more people than me connecting with the students. But yeah, it's a unique year. It's definitely a very challenging year in how we're transitioning. But in terms of giving people guidance and goals for the summer and training, that really hasn't changed too much. What we're hearing at Penn at this point is they are still planning to have students come back to campus. And as a lot of schools saying, a hybrid model where we would be some online, hopefully some small classes in session, and following state and Pennsylvania guidelines as it's possible, could do some training and so forth. So we're still preparing and training like we usually would, but it's definitely a unique year, and each college is going to have to handle things a little bit differently. But we still are sort of pursuing it the same in terms of trying to develop themselves as athletes. I don't know if that's fair.
Recruiting, one of the hardest jobs, I think, as a college coach, going out and recruiting. How do you handle that? What are some tips that you can give to people watching this Zoom chat or later on watching it? What's some suggestions for seniors, how to sell themselves to a school like yourself?
Yeah, again, so absolutely. So this is unique. So I am someone who likes to get out and see people. As I mentioned, having gone to the New Jersey state meet, and we would traditionally try to go to the national meets and sort of even other state meets around the country. And that opportunity didn't present itself for college coaches this year. And the same thing for high school students. They were left short on this year, right, in terms of meets they could compete in and things they could do. So it's a very unique year. I think one of the great things in today's society is there's a lot of opportunity to sort of connect through social media and so forth too, and a lot of online information, whether it's stuff you can find about performances, videos that exist, and so forth. So I think we work pretty hard, to try to identify students that might be a good match for Penn. A lot of students have sent us information about themselves and so forth, and we try to get pretty personal once we get information from students. Try to see if it could be a match. Every school has different criteria, but for us, if it's someone who, is a good match for Penn academically and so forth, we try to pursue it. It's definitely different though this year. Like I do appreciate when people send me information about themselves, maybe even links to help me see videos or performances or explain their background of how long they've been in the sport, what their other sports they've played. The more context coaches get, the more helpful in learning more about the students. And I have been saying, for this group that's now looking to be recruited, it is important to sell yourself and explain, your background and what you can do. I know as our coaches, we often like to talk to parents and coaches in the process too, just to get more perspective on students. But I think you have to be proactive as a person to be recruited. And then I think in college coaches, we're doing our best to learn a lot about students and look for people to be a good match for our schools. And the great thing about our sport, and I'll just say this to anyone who's watching, there's schools for everybody. And that's the beauty of our sport, right? There's so many different events you can do and so many different types of academic opportunities, financial opportunities as far as schools and levels of competition. So that's a great thing for a guy that competed in Division III and started coaching in Division III and now having the opportunity to coach at Penn. I just think it's great. There's so many opportunities. You just got to find the one that's the right match for you.
You talk about selling yourself. Some of these athletes, that's the hardest thing, is for them to really sell themselves. And a match, what do you think is a good match for your school, for your university?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a number of things, as we're recruiting students, we're looking for people that like what Penn has to offer. We're fortunate that we have a rich history in track and field with Franklin Field and the home of the Penn Relays. So, a lot of people know about Penn. So we're, that's helpful for us to get people to take a look at us. Obviously, academically, it's a very strong school that provides a lot of opportunities. So, a lot of people are aware of that. So early in our process, really, a lot of different times it's an academic match to make sure that this is a good applicant for Penn and it's going to be a good match for them. And we've got the things they want to study and so forth and that kind of thing. And then athletically, it's a high level of competition in the Ivy League. And we've been fortunate to have a number of athletes being able to compete at the national level. So, it is helpful if someone is aspiring to being someone who could compete well at the Ivy League or beyond level. And, that's the kind of people that we're more actively recruiting. So those are things that kind of fit our school and our program, but there's other components, it has to work for a family financially at Penn. Ivy League is need-based financial aid, and it's very good need-based financial aid, but that has to work for a family. And again, we're proud of being in the city of Philadelphia. We think there's a lot of opportunity to grow and experience, and we really think that's a great opportunity. But students have to be excited about being in the city and what our campus provides. So I think as students look at schools and, I guess I put on the parent hat here. I have 2 boys who are in college myself, so I've done this as a parent, not just as a coach. I always ask students the same question: name 2 or 3 things that are very important to you in your college search. And hopefully that starts to narrow the list. Obviously there's a million colleges out there, but how far from home, city versus small town, what major do you want? What level of competition does the team provide? When you start getting the list of things you want, then it starts to get a little more clear. And, it was interesting to go through that as a parent, watch my own kids do it. So anyone who's watching that's thinking about recruiting, I'd start making your own list. What's important to you? What do you want to see in the school you go to?
Now, speaking of your sons and you going through it, how did you handle it with your son? That would be a perfect example. Obviously, you wanted him to come to you at Penn, I would think, and you would want to continue coaching him. And it also had to be tough. You being a college coach and him being coached on the high school level, you had, I'm sure, a lot of small arguments along the way.
Well, I was very fortunate. So I've actually live a little bit outside of Philadelphia. I've lived in New Jersey for a long time, and both of my boys got a chance to compete in New Jersey, and they went to Hopewell Valley High School, and they just had a great experience. They had great high school coaches. Aaron Oldfield was their distance coach, and Danny Johnson was their head track coach, and those guys just did a great job of making the sport fun, letting them enjoy it and bring them along. And they had a great team and a lot of cool experiences. So they were fortunate. And I was not their high school coach. Their coaches did a great job. But for both of my kids, it was different. So my son, Tim, who is actually at Penn, which was very exciting. He loved Penn from fairly early on. He obviously had a lot of exposure to it. And I kind of laughed because my wife and I almost forced him to go look at a lot of schools because we kept thinking, like, make sure it's the right place, not just because you know it. And he did look at a lot of schools, but his heart was really on coming to Penn if it could work out for him. And I'm proud of his hard work academically that it did work out. So Tim will be a junior with us at Penn, which was pretty cool. And then his younger brother, Sean, is actually, he went through that kind of search of, how far from home, what size of school, what academic programs. He kind of made a list of what was important to him. And he ended up attending Villanova, and he'll be a sophomore there. And that was a good match for him. He wanted to be a little bit closer to family. The size of school was a good fit for what he was looking for. But he definitely looked at all types of schools to kind of figure out what he wanted and what was going to fit him. So that was the dad part of the search. But, I'm happy for them. And I think, the good thing is there's a lot of great schools, a lot of places you get a great education, and a lot of places you can have a great track and field experience. I had just as much fun coaching at the College of New Jersey with the great student athletes there as I've had at Princeton, as I've had at Penn. There's so many great opportunities, and they're out there.
So with your son being running for Villanova and you at Penn and you being dad and then being a coach, how does that feel? How does that play into everything? I mean, there's got to be times you want to give him advice and it might be different than the college coach. How do you do all of that, handle that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess personally, the way I treat it is I want both of my boys to be very independent and have their own opportunities to grow. And I'm really excited for both of them and what they're doing. And, Sean's in a great place. He's got great coaches. I certainly have a lot of respect for the job that Marcus O'Sullivan does at Villanova. So I know he's in good hands. And, you can have too many chefs in the dish. So he's definitely coached by his college program. And I just love to see him excel. I'm looking forward to watching him the next couple of years. And I'm certainly have a lot of fun with Tim on our team at Penn. We're excited about what's possible with our team as well. So I'm really dad with my boys. I really try not to be coach. I mean, certainly I'll go hang out with them at the track, or if they ask me questions, I'll give them some thoughts. But they've been very fortunate, had great coaches.
What advice can you give juniors for their summer training program? To me, I always looked when I was coaching on the high school level as those were the magic months, because a lot of kids that were talented sometimes took off the summer, didn't train, didn't do what they were supposed to. And you could take somebody that didn't have as much talent. All of a sudden now you have almost 3 months, depending upon where their season ended in June and where they were starting up in September, where you can get a really great jump on, summer training to lead into your next season. So what tips would you have?
No, I definitely agree. And I think that's where when you really sort of catch the track and field bug or the cross country bug, and you really have this internal passion to see if you can get better in what you can do, you can do a lot on your own time when it's not in practice with your coach during the season. And I think, those of us, we're fortunate to, around us. There's so many great track and field programs and meets, but New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, we've got great track and field around us. And it's easy to get excited about the sport. I go to the meets at Ocean Breeze, and how can you not get excited about the sport? I look way back when I was an athlete, my biggest gains were in the summer. I just trained, when I really got passionate about track and try to make big gains. So, if you're a track and field person, and if you can lift consistently through the summer, if you can find ways to get out and do some speed development and sprinting, you can keep doing drills to stay, healthy and ready to go. If you're a field event person, the weather's nice, you can get out and sort of do some drills and technique. I think track and field people have a great opportunity in the summer to advance either technically or just physically make gains. And obviously cross country, it couldn't be more important than the summer. That's a time where you can really, put your mileage in, work on your aerobic development, work on some areas where maybe you're not as developed. If you want to do some extra strength training or some extra hill work, or, the summer is a great opportunity. And actually, if you're going to race well in cross country, it happens in the summer. So I think whether you're track and field or cross country, the summer is huge. And it really comes down to you kind of wanting to do it in your own motivation. And really this summer, when you can't really be with people or as much together, but you can do it. If there's a will, there's a way, right? You don't need a lot of fancy facilities to do what we do.
Now, what would you say to these, seniors that have been training, hoping for a meet championship, a state championship? I always believe you could still perform even whether it's a dual meet or a tri meet, but it's going to be a whole different cross country season. And these athletes have been gearing towards, some of the Jersey schools have been very successful with the Nike Cross Nationals or Foot Locker, sending New Jersey athletes, New York athletes to these meets. And now, everything's constantly changing. What would you say if you're the high school coach? How are you going to keep them motivated? What can you really say to them to keep them motivated?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some of the big carrots that people get excited about. Whether you're hearing now whether the season's going to start late, whether you're going to be not less championship meets, whether the national meets won't exist. It is different, right? But the thing I think we're going to do coming out of this, is I think when we get the chance to compete again, it's going to be that much more fun. I think any time in life that anything is taking away from you, it kind of makes you soul search. What do I think about this? I think right now you're going to find in the sport those that love to run and those that love to do track and field, they're going to keep doing it. And they're going to get to the next level. And they're going to appreciate their opportunity even that much more. Maybe we took it for granted. Now we're just going to relish in it. And I think sometimes when people said, "Oh, try meet," I don't know if I want to do this try meet. I think people are anxious to go do a try meet right now and will be excited to compete and have that opportunity. So, I think we're gonna have to be creative. And you guys host incredible meets. Lou and Lauren, and what you guys do. And I think all of us in these situations that host meets and do things are gonna have to be creative. And how do we make this fun for the athletes? How do we give them a fulfilling experience? And it might be unique, whether it's the amount of teams, whether it's different event groups at different times. It's going to take a lot of creativity, but I think we have to put our heads together and figure out how do we make this great and keep the sport moving forward. But I think we're all going to enjoy it when we get that chance again. And there'll be a lot of smiles on faces when we get to compete in any way.
We've talked a lot about, runners and distance runners, and I know being a decathlete, you're covering all the events. So what are you going to say to your field event athletes? Um, how are they going to train? A lot of facilities don't have tracks open. What can you say to them?
Yeah, it's going to take some creativity. I mean, obviously, there's challenging even to get into weight rooms and so forth. So, I think anytime you have weight room access, whether it's at your high school or college, it's going to have to be very controlled and safe the way it's executed. But you can be very creative. I mean, there's a lot you can be doing with body weight, with plyometrics, with things like that to get stronger. And I think sometimes, with creativity and with the will, there's a lot of ways to get stronger. And there's a lot of great exercises. I mean, push-ups, pull-ups, lunges, as core exercises. And then if you start doing plyometrics, there's a lot of gains people can make, even if they don't have perfect weight room access. And then secondarily, I mean, it doesn't have to be on a track to do things that are quality. Most people can find a hill, or if you're in a flat area, you just have to use quality speed work. There's lots of things to be done, whether it's balance or, lots of different opportunities. But yeah, I mean, I think it's going to take creativity, and there's a lot of great coaches. I look around New York. There's so many fantastic coaches in the surrounding states. I'm sure these coaches will be creative and find great ways to keep athletes developing. So I'm optimistic.
Freshmen that are coming in, all of a sudden they're used to, for the most part, a smaller environment, not as much freedom. Mom and dad telling them what time to go to bed. Here's your meals. This is the time you're supposed to eat. It's very easy for freshmen to get lost in that first semester. They're getting hit with academics, but not always mom and dad telling you, open your book. Did you study? Can I help you with something? Now they're on their own. What are some of the challenges that you've seen over the years that would help freshmen?
Yeah, that college freshman year is definitely a big adjustment. And I think the thing that I've found, over all the years at any places I've worked, one thing that really helps is if you have a great team. And what I mean by a great team isn't just a competitive team, but a great team culture, very inclusive. People want to be together. People want to help each other. People have a common goal. And we're very fortunate at Penn. I think we just have a really good camaraderie amongst the team. And it's pretty exciting. And, we call it the Penn track and field family. I think that does help, because if you come into an environment where people want to do well academically, people take their sport seriously, and people kind of work together and set that tone, it gets contagious. I always think success or doing the right things gets very contagious. So hopefully, and you look around all the amazing high school programs that have success, it's the same thing. It's not luck that those programs are successful. They've got a culture and environment that, might be led from some of the great coaches, but the team buys in and start leading each other. So I hope that's what would happen for us. But it is a challenging freshman year, and the people who do the best, that's, as I'm recruiting people and, parents ask me how do you think it'll go? It really comes down to people being motivated to sort of put themselves on a good schedule, because in high school, it's more controlled, right? School starts at a certain time, classes, lunch, after school, you have practice, you go home. A lot of times you're going to have some help from your family as far as making sure you've got food and things to eat. You do some studying and repeat, right? But as you know, in college, it's very different, right? When you go to bed, when you get up, when you eat, when you study, when you play on your phone, when you play on your computer, You make all those decisions. So that's my biggest thing I would say to students is, if you can get yourself on a good schedule, if you can sort of get yourself planned of, hey, this is when I'm going to study, this is when I'm going to class, I got to get to bed at this time. If you can get on a schedule, that's a schedule for success. And some people adjust better than others, in making those kind of decisions.
Well, we have a perfect example because he came from the Catholic High School League in New York City, ran for Chaminade High School, Tommy Awad.
Yeah.
Could you bring us through his summer coming into Penn, and then his freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, senior year, how you brought him along? I mean, he had an outstanding 4 years at the school. Just really, we knew he was good, but to be honest, we didn't think he'd be that good 4 years down the road. What did you see in him when you were excited to bring him into your school? How did you develop him over those years, and what made him special?
Yeah. No, I really had a lot of fun. I mean, I've coached a lot of people and, had a lot of good athletes, but Tommy was one of the people that I say, like, one of the people I was most excited to watch race. Like, it was like prime time show. Every time he was going to race, everyone paid attention. And what made him special was he just had this special competitive instinct that you don't coach. It's your gift. And it was interesting. He just really wanted to win. And the way he prepared to win and the way he raced to win was amazing. And I think what was kind of fun about it is when you knew Tommy and saw Tommy, you wouldn't pick him out of the lineup, right? He was a smaller guy, pretty lean. Even at times, as smooth as he was, didn't have perfect stride, but he had a lot of ability, a lot of talent, and just a heart of a lion. It was unbelievable. So it was a lot of fun to watch Tommy develop. And he surprised me his freshman year. I thought he'd be pretty good, but I was surprised how quickly he was good. Cross country was tough because we stretched from 5K to 8K. But you could even see in cross country, by the time we got to the regional meet, he was getting better at 8K. And he actually fairly late in the race kept his nose up in the lead pack as long as possible. Now, couldn't finish it. It was 5 miles. But you could see the determination. You could see the spirit, and you could see the willingness to go for it that he showed at the end of his freshman cross country season. And then he took that to the track, and away things went. He started to really roll. But yeah, I mean, Tommy left as one of the most decorated runners in not just Penn history, but Ivy League history. He set the indoor mile record in the Ivy League, and still stands. He ran in the 1330s for 5,000 meters, 357 miler, got third at the indoor NCAAs, just unbelievable. And I got to a point where in the Ivy League, like you couldn't beat him. I mean, you just couldn't beat him. He just find a way to win. So really a lot of fun. And I think actually really helped our program. Our program made a big push when Tommy was here in terms of guys dreaming bigger, thinking they could run fast. And, having won an Ivy League title as a team in cross country and gone to the cross country nationals were all part of Tommy kind of setting the bar that this is possible. So he was a lot of fun to coach, and we're still good friends and stay connected. But yeah, he was special, and we've had some good ones from Long Island and New York. But yeah, Tommy was a great one, and he's a great one.
You probably, and this happens with a lot of high school athletes as well as college athletes. When we spoke to Alan Webb last week, he had an outstanding sophomore year. He did not have a great junior year in high school. And it was interesting when we spoke to him, at some point you had to hold back Tommy and put the reins on, because you knew, I mean, just watching him, he always wanted to give you 110% in the race. And I'm sure his practices were the exact same way, that he wanted to give 110%. I'm sure there's times he wanted to run his teammates into the ground, and you had to put the reins on and say, this is kind of not how I want you to do it. How'd you handle those situations?
Yeah, Tom and I had a really good relationship, coach-athlete relationship, and kind of my style of coaching is, I want to add the structure and the and help it put it together for you, but it has to be a we doing it together thing. So we had a real good rapport. I think the thing I tried to do because of his competitive spirit is try to make sure we selected the races wisely, because he would go to the well for you every time. He just had that refuse to lose attitude. So you definitely had to be careful not to over race him, because he was a thoroughbred, and if he's going to go for it every time, you knew he'd go deeper than most people. So you had to be careful not to over race him at times and set up his schedule appropriately. And we'd have to sit down and circle the ones that mattered and plan for those ones, because it didn't matter if it was a low key dual meet or if it was, the Millrose games or the Penn relays, he was going to try to win. So that was the thing I think we had to do with his racing. And with his training, yeah, he pushed himself. We had a good team, though. We had a good team around him. He had a lot of people that could train with him at a pretty high level. He was one of those guys that would, he did train hard, but he would train with the group and then race above the group. Like he had that sort of special take it to the next level when the gun goes off type spirit that the great ones sometimes have.
On the high school level, you're racing almost every weekend. Coaches are running these athletes in 2, 3 races sometimes. And now they get into college where you may train 4 weeks and get to race once and then have to train 3 more weeks. How did a person like Tommy handle that and kind of accept it coming from a new coach?
Yeah. I mean, that's sort of an adjustment for a lot of people in college, right? I mean, especially in cross country where you pretty much race every 2 weeks, but the races are longer and they're intense, but you don't race as many times through the season. You maybe race 5 times, 6 if you make it to nationals. So it's definitely different. And then even in track and field, I think in track and field, sometimes at the big meets that the really good guys like Tommy would end up doubling or tripling because they're trying to score team points and stuff. Whereas like we're in a situation where we don't have to do that as often. So oftentimes it's just one race on the day is the focal point of the day or things like that. So it's definitely a little bit of adjustment, but I think, it's a good adjustment. I think we actually can train a little harder knowing we're going to race a little bit less. And I think that, you get used to that pattern, I think, which is, probably a good pattern. And the goal is to stay healthy and just keep getting better. And, we've been fortunate, Tommy being one of them, but lots of guys that have kind of just gotten a little bit better every year. It's a slow process for those middle distance runners sometimes.
One of the reasons why I brought him up, and you have a repeating message here, is your communication with this athlete and how you both communicated about your training program, what your goals were, when you were going to race him. And on the high school level, sometimes those athletes don't say anything to their coach. They expect the coach to lead the way. It's one-sided. The coach saying, I'm doing this, this, and this. Sometimes as a coach, it's great to listen to the athlete, and it's great for the athlete to voice his concerns and what's important to him. Why don't you explain a little bit of your coaching philosophy on that?
Right. Well, first of all, I would say I think high school coaches do an unbelievable job in the fact that like I'm getting a little bit lucky because I'm getting people who've already developed to a certain level in high school, and they're coming in, with some background, with some more training under their belts in any event group, and then trying to take them to the next level. High school coaches do such a great job of taking people from new at the sport and learning it, trying to make sure everyone stays healthy and has fun doing it and developing from there. So high school coaches do an amazing job. What I see at the college level, just to share with you, is that communication piece gets better as they get older. So when the freshmen come in, it's tough because I always say, hey, I want an open door. Let me know how you're feeling. I want to know what you're thinking, what's worked for you in the past. I want to have that relationship. But freshmen by nature put their head down and just want to work, and they don't communicate as much. And I think that's actually one of the reasons, if you look around college athletics, there's probably more injuries and lack of performance in freshman year. Obviously, there's a lot of variables with school and all the things that are happening, but sometimes it's, they're not going to tell you if they're tired. They're not going to tell you if school has been stressful and those types of things as much. And fortunately, when someone becomes a junior or senior and they're more comfortable, they're more willing to kind of share their thoughts or be open, it gets to be easier, and so I guess that's what I'd say. I kind of, in 28 years, I kind of know that that's the case. So I try to go out of my way to sort of give opportunities to talk with freshmen and sophomores and how are you doing today? How are you feeling? How's school going? And try to make sure, because there's a lot of things in everyone's life that are going to influence their ability to be healthy, their ability to keep developing. But those are things I'm trying to do. I mean, it's a work in progress. I mean, it's not easy. And, but I do try to make sure that, and also if we're going to do a workout, our coaches I have great coaches, and I think they always do a good job of explaining what's the goal of the workout, what are we trying to accomplish? Not just, hey, this is what we're doing. It's like, what's the physiological benefit? Why are we doing this? Because I think the athletes, if they believe in what they're doing, they're going to be much more ready when it's time to compete.
Just getting a little off the topic of college running, the sport in general, how can we build up the sport? What are your feelings? I mean, we seem to be getting it right on the youth level. I mean, in the New York City area, we're busting out of the seams with youth events. What used to be a half-day meet turned into a full-day meet. Now it's 2-day youth meets. On the high school level, even adding a brand new facility like Ocean Breeze, We had meets all over the East Coast that are busting out of the seams. On the college level, we still have that enthusiasm, and then all of a sudden, we get to the professional level, and the attendance has dropped off. The interest on the professional level is lost. What can we do to improve the sport, in your opinion?
Yeah, it's not an easy question. I mean, like you just acknowledged, I mean, some of the great things about the USA system is it's scholastic based, right? It's school based. So our participation levels are so great across the whole country, you know, in the high school and middle school type level, like great participation. And because we have such a large college system, we have a lot of people that are able to continue. So that part is pretty good. I think even within that, though, there's things we can do. You know, I think we have to be creative, and you know, those that host meets and those that are coaching, like I think we do have to continue to think about how do we make it better, how do we make it interesting, how do we make it fun, and those types of things. And you know, it's going to take some creativity at a time like this, maybe more than ever, right? With all that we're facing from a health standpoint in society. And then yeah, when you get to the next level after college, that has been a challenge, right? I mean, our sport doesn't have the same professional system that all sports have. There are professional track and field athletes, but it's a fairly small percentage. And those that can stay with it and pursue their dreams, it's a little bit more difficult. So hopefully that will be something that'll keep advancing as we go forward. I know one good initiative, and I've heard Vin Lanana speak a lot about it from his leadership role with USA Track, is hoping to do more big meets in the summertime in the United States. I do think that would be good for our sport. You know, the weather gets good, and there's just hasn't been a lot in the United States. So I do hope we can continue to do that. And New York's hosted some great events in the summertime, but you know, those shouldn't be one-offs. We should be doing that more regularly. So I hope we can get more track and field in the summertime, which would really encourage the post-collegiate folks to keep going after it here in the United States. So that's something that I hope can happen. You know, we have an opportunity too, and we're the home of the Penn Relays, and I think we have to keep figuring out how do we make the Penn Relays. I think is a date people circle around their calendar, they get excited about it. We just have to continue to make sure that that's everything that's exciting for athletes and for coaches, and continues to have a leadership role in our sport. But you know, I don't have all the answers, but I look forward to hearing from, you know, high school, college coaches, and any of us that have a chance to host meets. You know, we need to keep working to advance the sport and make it fun.
I mean, one of the unique things about the Penn Relays is it not only has college, it has high school, it has youth, it has some power events. I mean, it kind of encompasses everything. And you speak about Vin, he created, I guess it was a couple of years back, 3 or 4 years ago, Tracktown USA track meet, where he had a great idea. It was crazy from our standpoint when he put it on at Icon Stadium. He had a 5K road race going on and finishing on the track, while there were races going on the track, while the hammer was going on the track. It was a 3-ring circus all around. But one of the key things that he brought in that component was people that are running and racing on the roads who had never seen a track meet before. Mm-hmm. And he kind of is, and from a facility standpoint, it was one of the craziest things that I was ever involved in. I mean, we had dunk tanks on the infield, the hammer going on, youth events, and then he decides to bring everybody down to the track for the mile.
I was on the track. I was there.
Okay, so
I was there. What
was, since you were there, what was your thought about that meet? Is it some place that you could see track and field going and bringing the excitement back?
I think it was a lot of fun. I thought it was great. And I think it was very creative. There's been other situations like that. I think Kyle Merber has done a good job with the Long Island Mile. That seems like it's a lot of fun. So it might be some of those things too. I know a traditional track and field meet is all the events, which I love, all the events. But there might be some showcase opportunities, right? Maybe there's a special throws carnival that really hypes up the throwing community, get excited around it, and it could be a lot of fun with how it's presented and the atmosphere of it. And you know, that meet was very fun. I really enjoyed the multiple events that were there, but it was a pretty tight program. It was elite level competition. There was a lot of energy in the stadium. That was really a lot of fun. You know, but I think whether it's jumping events, throwing events, sprinting events, distance events, we got to have them all. That's track and field. We love them all, but maybe they don't all have to be at the same time at the same place. Maybe we can cut down the time of the meet, and maybe we can do different sort of highlight events that are really exciting. Those are things I think we should be looking at. And I think there's some creative people out there that have done some of those events, and maybe we need to be open to doing some more of those things. And you know, I'm sure you guys have the capability at Ocean Breeze to put on some pretty exciting events that may be more select events on each session. But that was fun. I think that was fun. There was music, there was atmosphere. We were all on the track cheering. I remember my kids were pretty young then, but they were excited about the sport. They were taking videos, I think, and that kind of stuff. It was exciting.
What about USA track and field? How do you think they could get more involved in the sport and really help promote it?
So like, you mentioned one of the highlights of Penn Relays is we have it through all age groups. And that is one of the cool parts of USA track and field. It's, from youth events all the way up to our Olympic team, which is the best in the world. It really does span the spectrum. So there is an opportunity there, and that's where a lot of the officials come through that system, and there's opportunities. I guess I don't have the plan in mind, but that is a platform to continue to advance our sport. And I've been fortunate to attend a couple Olympic Games in support of Team USA, and actually got to coach an athlete that made the Olympics Games, Don Cabral, represented the United States in the Olympic Games when I coached him in the steeplechase. So really, proud to be a part of USA track and field, and that's a group that has an opportunity to help lead us to the next level.
I mean, one of the things that I always found is role models for these kids. And anybody that knows me, I've always tried to get, whether it's our youth kids, our high school kids, involved when there's a professional meet, because I really think it's important. One is they set a role model, and two, they get to know the athletes. And if they get to know the athletes, there's a better chance they'll come and watch the meet. But we always find this resistance that, a professional meet is a professional meet. A big college meet is only a big college meet. And I just find it hard sometimes is we have all these great organizations and we're all working against each other, as opposed to now we need everybody working together. Is that something that you feel strongly one way or the other?
Yeah, I guess, certainly I think it's very important, like you said, if we're going to, be excited about our sport, if the youth athletes or younger athletes have a turn to AC or B compete in the same venue with our professionals, that's exciting. And, in a day, that's what you see at like a Millrose Games, right? You're at the Millrose Games and you've got the pros out there, but you also have, that there are a few events that the young kids are on the track, and it's exciting for everybody. And so I do think that intermixing is very important. And I just remember back even when I was competing, when I sort of cut the bug, as I called it before, in high school, I couldn't get enough of track and field. It was on TV. I was watching. There was a meet. I tried to get to it. And, I was a high school kid from Minnesota that couldn't get enough of trying to watch the stars in our sport, and, had a pretty close beat on it. So any way we can help, our Olympians and our professionals connect with the younger groups, is great. So creative ways to do that, I think, is outstanding.
My last question. What is your best memory of all your years coaching, all your years involved track and field? Was it a race? Was it an athlete? Was it somebody you met? I know you got 40 plus years to think about, but what stands out in your mind the most?
Yeah, it's tough to say there's any one moment, but the one thing I think as a coach that's fun is, the athletes put so much into preparing. We spend all this time preparing and meets that are building to something. And, so there'd be multiple moments, but that moment when someone has sort of set a dream for themselves, set a goal, and they've worked really hard at it, and now the moment happens. And it doesn't always happen. You don't always win the race or throw as far as you wanted. But I actually love the process. But there is that special moment when you see with someone just elated, knowing they've accomplished what they've been chasing doing. And that's just such a powerful moment in sport. And the reality is you don't win all the time. You don't always hit the mark, but I think you have fun in the pursuit of it. And when that moment happens, it's pretty special. And I mean, my first thought is, again, home of the Penn Relays. I go back to opportunities. I've seen a few teams win the Penn Relays in those major relays. And to watch that group of 4 people all doing their best on that day and having that magical moment together, that's something that's really special. I mean, I love all the events in track and field. So to see anybody sort of celebrate when they've done something they trained for is special. But I guess my first thought is there's moments where those relays are kind of special because all 4 have played a role in it. So I guess, I don't want to name anyone, but most recent was our women's distance medley won the Penn Relays. That was such a magic moment for those 4 women as they ran around the track and celebrated together. And that's the thing. I think whether it's a team success, it's just that moment when people have accomplished a goal they've chased. So I don't know if I just have one, but I'm sort of escaping your question here. I don't want to belittle any one moment, but when you achieve your goal, it's pretty special.
Now, it is pretty cool when they do get that victory lap at the Penn Relays and you see those expressions, whether, it's the women's team and men's team and they win. But from a coach's perspective, I think sometimes they should just put the spotlight on them and watch them jumping up and down when they see, that goal and they get that big plaque and the whole bit, how special it is.
Yeah.
I just want to thank you for taking the time. I'm going to open it up to questions to see if Lauren has some questions. I see Catherine's out here. She has any questions. Lauren?
I mean, it tends to happen every week when we do the Zoom calls. Lou always asks like my one question for the end, which he just did again. So I guess, just to finish things up for me would be if you could give, one piece of advice to a high school athlete who's just getting ready now to enter college and, they're really worried about, not having a cross country season or not being able to go to campus. What's the one piece of advice you would give them, looking forward to the next 2 or 3 months?
Sure, Lauren. Well, first of all, I just want to acknowledge here, I appreciate your question, Lauren. I acknowledge Lou started this by saying I've been in this for a long time. So just acknowledge Lauren was a very good javelin thrower both in high school and college. So it's fun to be on a panel with you, Lauren, having watched you compete admirably in the javelin years ago. But to answer your question, for me, I think the thing is, in life, it's control what you can control. And right now, I guess I'm very proud of my own sons and the team that, we have at Penn. And I think people have a good perspective on we're all going through this challenge together. And I think the most important thing to think about right now is what do you have control over? So, we have to stay safe. We have to be smart. We have to respect the situation, but, control what you can. And I do think, as we've talked about in this conversation, like, if you want to get better, you can find ways to get better. You have to be creative with it, but you can find ways to train and get better. As you go off to college this year, if you're going to be a freshman, like, it's not going to be exactly what you thought it was going to be. Obviously, we all wanted to go to classes all together. We want to have all these opportunities to compete, but we have to make the best of whatever the situation is at the moment, and just control what you control and make the best of that opportunity, I guess is what I'd be saying. And maybe easier said than done, but I think you got to, live each day to the fullest and just do your best you can with every moment that you've got. So I guess that's the simple message I would give.
Definitely. But yeah, I mean, Steve, was coaching at the College of New Jersey, or back then it was Trenton State, which was right down the road from my high school. So I got to see his program and kind of admire what they were doing. And, I got to go to a few meets and watch Steve coach, back then. So it was definitely exciting to see, how you've progressed, from TCNJ to, UPenn now. So it's been pretty cool.
Well, we lost the recruiting battle for Lauren, but we got a couple of your teammates to come, which was good.
One of them's on the call now too, but she's being a little silent, but.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No, I think I'm good. Steve, you got any questions for us?
No, I mean, we're hoping we'll be back with you guys this winter. I give you my best. I know it's a stressful time for you too, as folks that love track and field and, love hosting events and all that you do all year round, hosting events and making the sport better. So thanks for what you guys do. And, as I probably said this year when I was at your facility, no one does it better. So thanks for what you guys do for the sport and for all the students. And we can't wait to get back. Looking forward to being there in the near future.
Same
We're
here.
hoping we're back also.
Okay. All right.
This is probably the longest I've gone, not going to a track meet to an empty stadium in my lifetime. So I'm dying to get back, and we're dying to see the athletes again.
Yeah, we're all missing it. We'll be back, but it might be different, but we're going to be back. And but thanks a lot. This is great. And I love what you guys are doing for the sport. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night, and thank you for joining us.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.